administrado por su servidora Yorbelis Paredes. Te esperamos para que te veas y te sientas increíble.
Si quieres comer carne de la pura, si quieres comer mofocos de Doña Pula, vámonos a comer donde Doña Pula, vámonos a comer donde venden el tajo de verdad. ¿A dónde Pula? ¿A dónde Pula? ¿A dónde Pula? Me voy pa' donde Pula. Dicen en Santiago y el Chivago entero de que en Doña Pula el sazón es bueno, buenísimo. ¿A dónde Pula? ¿A dónde Pula? ¿A dónde Pula? Me voy pa' donde Pula. A los aguiluchos y los liceitas vengan a comer esta carne frita. ¿A dónde Pula? ¿A dónde Pula? ¿A dónde Pula? ¿A dónde Pula? Me voy pa' donde Pula. ¿A dónde Pula? ¿A dónde Pula? ¿A dónde Pula? Me voy pa' donde Pula.
El Aeropuerto Internacional de Bávaro será el aeropuerto más moderno del Caribe, que trae turismo, empleo y desarrollo para todos los dominicanos. Será la puerta de entrada de grandes oportunidades. Juntos somos AIB, Aeropuerto Internacional de Bávaro, el aeropuerto de todos.
Una producción de
Puntacana.
Y venimos más fuerte que nunca. Más fuerte que nunca. 89.9 CDN Radio.
Every Friday at 7 p.m., Puntacana presents What's Up Puntacana with Christy Maggio, the #1 and only English talk show in the area, with the best that the Dominican Republic and the rest of the world have to offer. Hello, hello. What's up, Puntacana? This is Christy Maggio, and I am so excited. I've been off for a few weeks, just getting things together. Sometimes you just need that little bit of a break. And so now I'm back in action. So excited to have my guest here tonight. I've interviewed her before, but at the same time, there's always something more to talk about. And so she just had this amazing interview on YouTube with this incredible host. And there's so many more questions that I have that stemmed from that. And her name is Barika Andrews. And I gratefully and thankfully met her through the church that I go to here in the Punta Cana area, and so I have been blessed to meet her, know her, and she has gotten me out of a couple tight situations with the school and everything. So I'm so grateful because she has so many different qualities and hats that she wears. But tonight, we are going to focus on leadership because I think that is one of the things that really needs to be talked about. What is a leader? How do you become a leader? You know, you have leaders, you have followers, you have those who are good at what they do, but then because they're good at what they do, they're automatically put in a leadership position, but they've never been a leader before. And so then working with different people, you're kind of like, okay, well, this is how I lead. This is my personality, but it's sometimes like oil and water. They don't mix. And so I would just like to welcome Barika to the show and have her do a little bit more of an introduction because everybody can introduce themselves the best, but welcome again.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on again. I appreciate it. You just are so dear to my heart. And so I'm just grateful that I got to know you, especially early on my venture being here. Mm-hmm. And so I'm Barika, and I have been leading since 1997, and I have been basically paid to be a leader since that time. And so there have been different opportunities that I've had where I've been able to basically use the skills that I had, whether it was working in corporate, whether it was working in the classroom, whether it was working with my own company now, which is called Simply Unique Coaching. And so in working with Simply Unique Coaching, I have been able to help raise up additional leaders and help them to become better at being leaders.
Mm-hmm. And so we know and we hear a lot, especially since COVID, coaches
Yeah.
coaches. And so sometimes there's a stigma of that, but you're way beyond that. And I can testify to that. But let's go with the name Simply Unique.
Yes.
You are unique.
Yes.
And so therefore, where did that come from?
Okay, so I will definitely say it humbly, like I am a person who believes that we learn best because we need to have somebody teach us what's practical, right? So when it comes down to leadership, what's important is knowing that everyone is different. No one is exactly the same, and being able to figure out what is different about this person, what makes this person unique, that is going to be what's going to make you an effective leader.
That is so true. I couldn't agree more, because, you know, in anything that we do, in any place that we go, and everybody's personality, every person is different. We are all, I always tell my students, we're all snowflakes, you know, no snowflake is like another.
Yeah.
And so, and I always quote this, like Dr. Seuss's quote, you know, it was one of those, why fit in when you were born to stand out?
I love
like,
it.
We are all meant to be unique, because if we were all the same, we'd be boring. However, to lead a unique set of people is a difficult task.
Yes.
Because you want to pull them this way, but they want to pull you a different way. And so let's get into that.
Okay.
How, you know, there are different leadership styles.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so how do you go about going into these corporates and they're like, I'm struggling with my people. Like, they're just not hearing me.
Yes.
They don't want to hear me. And then I'm imagining you're like, well, because you're just listening to yourself. But tell us about leadership styles and why it's so important to recognize them and recognize those personalities in your employees and how to maneuver that.
Okay, perfect. And actually, I want to back up just a little bit, because there's some questions that you asked as well. So I have been leading for over 15 years. I've led more than 18 teams. So like, I'm not talking just out of my head. Like you're saying, there are different coaches and people that say, oh, I'm a coach. But when you're at this level of leadership, there are actually 4 different levels of leadership. So the level of leadership I'm at now is where I'm able to create other leaders.
Nice.
So let me talk about that really quickly. So the first level of leadership is basically where you're given a title. So people are following you just because you have the title. You don't have the influence at that point, but you have the title. But then the next level is you're able to help develop individuals so that they can grow and become better. And a good leader is going to be able to be okay with their people growing and getting better. And even if that means them leaving the organization because they found a better opportunity, because you know, hey, I did what I was supposed to do to help this person for the time that they are here with me. And that means you're doing a good job when you can help people move forward in life. And then as a leader, you're being effective. Okay. Right. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign. If people are just respecting you or just following you, not even respecting you, if they are just following you just because you have the title, we have some work we need to do there, okay? And then the next level of leadership is then you're able to help, like, lead leaders. But then the next level is you're able to help create leaders and help them to produce more leaders, you know? So there's levels to this, as they say. And so when it comes down to, let me back up. What was the last question you asked? Because I want to make sure I answer that. And or otherwise, I can keep going.
It was basically along those lines. Like, what are the 4 different, you know, leadership styles, and how do you, if you're a certain leadership style, like how do you manage other people with different personalities?
So that's actually, those are actually 2 different questions, because then there are different types of leaders. And so having different types of leaders, but then also knowing that they're different core personalities. So let me tell you, let me back up a little bit.
Okay.
So back in 1997, I worked in a retail grocery chain. I was almost going to say in Spanish, como jumbo. It was a store kind of like a jumbo. And so I was 17 years old, leading in an area like that. And so customer service with the front end, with people having returns and the cashiers and the baggers and all of that. And so I started doing that at 17. And because I started off as a cashier and I knew everyone, I got along fine. It didn't matter if they were the same age as me. It didn't matter if they were 65, because we had some senior citizens that were there as well. I got along fine with them. Then fast forward a few years later, I was an analyst working in a corporate office, being happy, solving problems and saving the world in my own little mind. Just kidding. Doing my part
In your own little mind, yes.
you know, but just happy, just fixing problems for the company and just feeling great about that. And then they asked me, hey, can you start this new team? And by the way, this team is going to be on our company's report card. And by the way, if you screw up, it's going to affect 10,000 employees.
With no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure.
And not only will everyone in our company know, everyone in the national organization will know that oversees us. So
Great.
yeah. And so it's like, eek, okay.
Good pep talk.
Right? And so my little team of 8 that we had to develop from scratch was now like having to start this initiative. But then the problem came is that we were so busy starting the initiative and trying to figure it out that we just put warm bodies in positions. And so what I mean is like we just got whoever seemed qualified in those positions. Worst mistake you can make as a leader ever.
Ooh, yes.
I learned that one time and have not made that mistake.
I've made that mistake myself.
And so just as a side note, as a leader, take the time to find the right people. I am at the point now in my career where if you send me an email asking me if I need help with something, I absolutely will not work with you. However, if I run across you in a grocery store or in a restaurant and I see your work ethic, I'm more likely to look at you because you're already doing. I'm not looking for somebody who can sell me their skills. Mm-hmm. You know, don't just look for the talkers, the habladores.
Right. The habladores.
The habladores, right? We don't want to because some people can talk a good game. I have
Sure
family
can.
members who can just talk a penguin into buying ice.
Yep.
You know?
So true. But this, you know,
Yeah.
one thing that struck me there is somebody once told me that you should always be hiring, you know, and you don't want the people that usually you're not looking for the people that don't have jobs. You're looking for the people that are working.
That is the point that I'm at right now. That is the point I'm at right now. So even I had to not fire. I haven't had to fire anybody recently. Well, yeah, I did really. Anyway, but it was like it wasn't working out. So and as a leader, I would say don't keep on people that you know are not going to work out. You're wasting time. You're wasting money, and you're wasting their time as well. You know, like it's better to help them find their happy place, and you get the right people. But that's another conversation, you know, for another time or maybe later. But it's important to see who's tried and true. And even when I interview people, I ask them, they call it kind of like situational interviewing. So, and I'm even helping a client right now. She's interviewing and I'm like, okay, when you answer the question, but then provide an example of you doing it because that's going to be more effective because anybody can tell me, oh yeah, I'm really great at organizing documents and getting things together and put together and organized. But if you tell me, hey, I had to organize this event for 10,000 people and then, okay, now you're giving me something to work with.
Right.
And please don't make up stuff. Like if you're, please don't make up stuff, you know, if you don't have the skill set, just own what you do have. But like, if you are a leader and if you are hiring people, look for people who have already done it, you know, that's going to be one of the things I will say. And some people can develop into it if they have initiative. You can test them out, but if you see that you get them in, they seem like they had initiative. Like I had someone reach out to me, they're like, hey, I would love to help you with this. And I was like, okay, you know, and they were like really on it. But then when they had the opportunity, they fell through and I hired somebody else to do it. So, you know, you have to look at the fruit.
Yes. I think that's really important because, again, a lot of people promise the world and don't deliver. And it's like another mentor of mine said, if the first question they ask you is how much am I going to get paid, then I never hire them, he said, because I want to know that before you walked in here, you at least looked at my mission, my vision, what's the company stand for, you know about it, and you actually believe in what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now, he's like, I know that everybody needs a paycheck, everybody needs to live, but if your first question is, how much am I going to get paid?
Yeah.
You know, that's a difficult question.
Red flag.
Yeah.
And then actually, the second question one of the questions you asked about the 4 different personality types. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So what made things change for me was that after I got those warm bodies into those
Yes.
positions. And it was really just 3 troublemakers that were on the team. They were very negative and were bringing the rest of the team down. And it's only a team of 8. So if you have 3 out of 8, that's like really a bad combo. And so, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so from there, I did some professional development. And the company that I worked for at the time, they spent thousands of US dollars to train us at that company and to train me. So they had invested thousands of dollars into me to help me to become a better professional person, to become a better leader. And so I take what I learned from them. And one of the biggest things that I learned during that process was self-awareness. And so realizing, okay, how do I see the world? What are the parts in me that will never change? Like I am an analytical person. I'm going to be the one that's going to walk into one of the grocery store here and see what's incorrect. Let me say it differently. See what can be made more efficient. And be able to say, man, if they just did this and that, this will make a better experience for their customers and they're going to make more money.
For example, stocking the shelves in the middle of the night instead of during the busiest time of the day.
That. So we love you if you know who you are. If you don't, please, or at least don't block the aisle so the customers can't get what they need. Just saying. Okay. There is a store who does that here.
There's lots of stores that do that.
And so, but becoming more self-aware and realizing that, I'm a natural problem solver. So whenever I get into a situation, whether I want to or not, my brain automatically goes into problem solving mode. So what I'm really good at, and that's why I was great as an analyst, was I was great at solving problems.
Oh, that's a skill right there.
Yeah. Wow. That is actually one of my natural giftings. So to put me in a job where I'm doing the same thing over and over and over, that's not going to fit. That's not a best fit for me. However, there are people who are wired like that. So like my husband's like that. My husband is very good at being the details. He's very, very good at the details. And so, and liking consistency and like things that are, and so when it comes down to that, knowing that, okay, accounting, not going to be my thing. I don't want to follow the pesos. I don't want to follow the pennies.
Right. Me neither.
The little pennies. I just make it work.
Yep.
But so let's talk about the 4 core personalities. You have your analytical person. This is the curious person. This is the person that's going to watch documentaries just because they find them interesting. That's going to look at how do bridges get those little columns to go down into the water and stay. Just look up things that are random.
I hear you.
Just for no reason, just because they enjoy it. And then you have the detail-oriented person. So this is the person who's going to look at, they're going to notice that one little dot on the wall that nobody else notices, right? You have your creative people. And they are the people that are like the free spirits, and they need to have their space, and they're probably going to be late to everything you have going on, and that's okay because that is a part of their core personality. Just know that if you have friends or workers that are creative, they are going to come up with great ideas, but they're going to want to work outside the bounds, the boundaries. And then you have the relationship person, and this is the person who wants to invite everyone, wants to be with everyone all the time. And so knowing which one is your core personality is going to be important, because then you'll know how you see the world. And then what I teach people is, okay, find out what you are, find out the strengths and weaknesses, because each of them have a strength and weakness. And so especially when you're extreme, because I was in the analytical role, I was so extreme. I was one of the highest ranking analytical people. Like the lady was like, oh my gosh, you're almost off the charts how high you are. But that's because I was in a primary role of solving problems. And what I had to become as a leader was, we call it a chameleon, which is mainly you can jump in and out of those 4. You still will have your core personality, but you're able to relate to anybody in any of those other ones, because you are going to have team members that are going to be different. And so depending on what you're hiring for, you also need to know that, because when you're interviewing, you want to ensure that if you're looking for somebody who can be a graphic designer, then you don't need the detail-oriented person in that role.
Right.
So knowing that, and then knowing it for yourself, but then also teaching it to your team, so then they know, oh, that person isn't really trying to annoy me. They just have a different personality. Right. Because it takes the center of the focus off of ourselves, and it puts it on, hey, the world's a big place, and there's variety out here, and that's okay. And then just how do we make it all work so that everyone can get what they need and give what they need to get what we need. Yeah.
Interesting. So what am I?
I never really tried. Well, okay.
I'm trying to think.
I'm going to tell you now, like, I never really thought about it. And it's so interesting because when I'm working, I do tend to know this about people I'm assessing. And it's interesting. I never did that with you. So I can tell you have the creative part in you for sure. Probably creative and probably the problem solver.
I was thinking that too, because I'm kind of like, creative because like I'm the ideas person. I can't say I'm not good at executing, but I have too many ideas to execute all of them. I need
But you're not supposed to, because the detail-oriented person, the detail-oriented person is supposed to be the one that is executing.
Yes.
So then your like second in command should be like, or or not even your second in command, but you need to have somebody on your team that can help execute the plan, the vision.
Execute the vision.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I execute part of it, but it's one of those things that, when you have so much going on and in one small little head.
But the thing is, and it also shows how we need to be interdependent,
Yes. And that's where my problem has always lied, because I'm a control freak. So I'm very much realizing this in the past couple of years, how important it is. It's okay to have somebody else there that can do that piece, and you don't have to be Superwoman.
Yeah. And you just train them on how you want them to get it done. Because like right now, for one of the companies I'm working with, I hired a video editor for them out of the Philippines. Ended up being a fantastic hire, just amazing. So for myself, I just recently got a video editor, and I'm so excited about that. And it's been interesting because I'm even having to fight internally with myself, because I've been editing my own videos that I have on YouTube for, I guess, about a year or so. And I'm like, oh, I got it down to kind of like where I like them. And so even like now transitioning that over to them and saying, okay, I need to just train them on how I want them to do it, so that I can save my time, because that's part of why I hired them.
So much time. And video editing is so much time.
It's time consuming.
Very time consuming. Very time consuming. Have you met Opus?
No.
You need to meet Opus.
Okay.
Just
you need to introduce me.
I will introduce you later. But
yes.
Yes. But okay, let's go back.
Yeah.
Moving backwards. So in the beginning, when you were talking about leadership and the tier 4 leader is creating other leaders, right?
Yeah.
It just kind of reminds me of Jesus and the disciples, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I love
and someone said that to me a long time ago. It's like, Christy, what you want to do is so big. He didn't mean it for me to be Jesus. Obviously, I could never be Jesus. But he goes, you need to be Jesus, and you need to create disciples.
Yeah.
Which is true. Like, in the sense of teaching.
Yeah.
Like, I need to be the leader. I need to show them, and then I need to set them out to go and create more of what I want to create.
Absolutely.
In that sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Nothing like Jesus. Could never fill those shoes. So, however, but it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard to let go.
It's not hard to let go. It's hard to find the disciples.
I think it depends.
I think that I think half of it's hard to find the disciples, and I think the other half of it is that I'm not doing as good of a job as Jesus did.
But we all have our things. So even with I have my hands in a lot of different pots, several pots, so to speak. But one of the companies that I'm working with, that was one of the things that I've had to help them with is knowing how to hire, because I have experience hiring. And so beyond, okay, let's go back to that team I had, right? So once I realized that these 3 people are not working out, I think all 3 of them? I think all 3 of them at one point in time resigned. But from that point on, I learned, okay, as soon as they resigned, let me get the right person in. And I didn't have any problems after that. And our team just did phenomenal. And I mean, got won awards, got money and all this kind of stuff, And so from that experience, I was able to take it on to other avenues. Just I'm about to speak in Spanish again. I was going to say después. My brain is like in Spanglish right now.
Yeah.
But I was able to implement it in other respects. And then even to like being a volunteer. So like you're talking about like sometimes they're hard. It's like knowing where to look and having your eyes open. But like you said, also constantly looking. Because I will tell you one of the most difficult places to lead is in a volunteer organization, and I did that for 7 years.
Oh, yes.
So those people don't have to be there. They are not getting paid, and they don't have to show up. Mm-hmm. They can say they're going to show. And I mean, we were because we were working in the youth ministry, so like before church, we would have to go check the bathrooms. Okay, that toilet's not clean. And I'm a leader. I have no problem scrubbing the toilet,
Yep.
if I need to, because I'm supposed to be showing the example. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the good things, is the leader sets the example. But then when you have people that you set the example for and they say, okay, no, this person isn't just talking the talk, they're walking the walk,
yes.
then they can get behind it. And as a leader, if you aren't seeing, not talking about you, I'm just saying, like, if people aren't seeing success in their leadership, the first thing they have to do is, what is your vision? Mm-hmm. We have to be clear on what are we trying to accomplish?
Yep.
What are we trying to accomplish? If we can't clearly articulate what we are trying to accomplish, nobody can follow us, because we're not able to clearly communicate that. But once we can communicate the vision and repeat it to the point, or explain it to the point that other people can see it, they can picture it in their head, they can see it happening, they can envision it, then they can help put feet to the mission. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so what I see sometimes is that leaders are struggling because they haven't been able to clearly articulate what they want, or B, they know what they want and they haven't communicated it to their team, or they think in saying it one time to their team that they got it.
Right.
And you see the commercials. How many times do you see a commercial for whatever come across because they want to ensure that you get the message that this is the product for you, this is the thing for you. And so we have to repeat it. And even like, even in working in education, you realize that, okay, with kids, I have to repeat the same thing over and over again, but they will eventually get it. And sometimes it feels like, oh, I'm beating a dead horse, as we were saying, kind of
yes.
thing. But really, it's in repetition. It should get to the point where they're able to communicate back to you and anyone else what the vision is. And that's when they got it.
Exactly.
And when they got it, they can support it.
Yep.
And
they understand it,
mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because, like, obviously in this past week,
mm-hmm.
With the school,
yeah,
and beginning a new year again,
mm-hmm.
and then training new people,
yeah,
and making sure that I am being that role model,
yes,
that
absolutely.
You're leading by example. A lot of times you find that, oh, I'm now the leader, so I don't have to do anything. Like, I just sit there and you just, it's the title. They get it. It goes to their head, and I'm like, I am in there plunging toilets. I am in there sweeping the floor.
Yes.
I'm walking around today with a broom and a dustpan, and people are like, "Aren't you the director?"
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Part of my job description.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can do anything, and that
mm-hmm.
truly is what a leader is about.
Absolutely.
They're going to get in the trenches, right there with their people.
Yes.
It's not, you go do it and I'm going to sit in my office. It's, I'm here with you. What do you need?
And can I say that at least, I'm trying to be, as we would say, PC back home, but I'm just going to say it. One of the things that I noticed since being here is that there are some good leaders, and there are some leaders who kind of have that hands-off approach, like, oh, I'm just going to send my employees to do the grunt work, and I'll show up whenever. And the thing is, they will have better employees and happier customers if they actually lead by example.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not in every case, but I've seen it enough to say, ugh, and then that's when you get lazy employees that don't want to do anything.
Yep.
Because the leader is not really putting in effort.
Yep.
And so, and if people don't feel like they're invested in what you're doing, they're not going to give you their best unless they are a person that just is hardwired innately. And those are the people I'm looking for.
Yes. Exactly. That their reputation, their work ethic means more than the job, right?
Yeah.
For some people, it's just a paycheck, clock in, clock out. But for some people, It may be just a paycheck.
Yeah.
But they're going to clock in and they're going to do their 10,000% while they're there and clock out because they know that something better is going to come along.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
when something better does come along, they know that
Yeah.
that recommendation that they're a hard worker, they do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
They go the extra mile. That's what's going to separate them from the rest.
And what's interesting, and you work in education, so I know that you've seen this before. A lot of times people like that, they were like that from the time they were a kid.
Yep.
They were, because I've
sure.
seen it when I was in education. I've had students where I was like, man, this kid is so excellent. They're just going to go and do great things in the world because they held themselves accountable.
Yep.
And they did whatever they needed to do if they had an assignment or if they. I had one child one time, and I was like, bless her heart, she's so sweet and precious. She put herself in timeout. I didn't put her in timeout. She put herself in because she was doing something with her friend, and her friend got in trouble with me. But I had told him before, don't do that. And I told him once before, and he did it again. And so the second time he did it, she was with him. So he got put in timeout and lost his recess. And she didn't realize that I had already talked to him once before. So she put herself in timeout because she said, oh, I didn't think, he got in trouble and wasn't able to play. So I thought that I shouldn't play either. And I said, no, sweetheart. I said, I talked to him before about that. She was like, oh, okay.
Aw.
And
Yeah.
that little girl, I'm just like expecting such great things out of her,
Yep. And you could see them. Mm-hmm. But also, though, just like that, you get those that maybe are troublemakers as kids. And then a lot of times they're labeled as, oh, they're just going to be a delinquent. They're not going to make anything of themselves. They're not. And a lot of times it's those labels that end up setting them back, And
Can we talk about that?
yeah,
Like, can we not rush past that?
I would love to.
Can we not rush past that? Because if you are a parent, please do not do that to your child. If you have any access to children, please do not say negative things to children. They take that internally, and they may just have a bad moment. They may have had, like we say in the book, they may have had a bad page. They may have had a bad sentence.
Yep.
They may have had a bad chapter. But we don't want to put that label on the entire book because they could change. And you wouldn't believe the number of, I used to also work in, volunteer for the prison ministry. And so I did prison ministry for like 3 years. And so in doing that, you wouldn't believe the number of people who said it was somebody saying something negative in their life. Sometimes it was also association by them being around the wrong crowd, maybe. And especially with women, that tended to be the situation. It was like their boyfriend was into something and they were with the boyfriend, so they ended up in prison because of the relationship they were in. Maybe the boyfriend was doing something illegal. But at any rate, when it comes to, that just hurts my heart. When I hear people talk bad to children, because that's a child. That is a child. Now, you can guide them and say, hey, you're better than that. Like, I don't, and that's what I would say. There are ways to correct children without having to tear them down because we don't want to break their spirit. Because when you break their spirit, that thing you say to them at the age of 3, they can be struggling with when they're 53 years old.
Exactly. Now, it's interesting you said that because I'm going to bring it back around to a different scenario where there was this study done and they took the worst teachers in the school and they took the worst students in the school and they told the teachers that they were giving them the gifted kids because they had the best scores and just knew what they were doing. And so they said, these kids are gifted kids. And they went in and said, and so the teachers pulled a full year, telling the kids, you are here, you are great. We are here because we are the best. You are here because you are the best. And these kids excelled. The teachers excelled. And at the end of the year, you had great test scores. And they're like, well, you gave us the best students. And the principal was like, well, they were the worst students. And like, what? Well, then they did really well because they were the best. We were the best teachers. And like, he's like, well, not exactly. But it's amazing how when you tell yourself or when you're told that you are the best or that I have high expectations of you, I know you can do it. I believe you can. Like, there's no, it's not just blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, yes, a lot of times it's just lip service. You can do anything you set your mind to, but you have to make them understand, like, I know what you can do.
Yeah.
I expect it of you. You need to expect it of yourself.
Absolutely.
You know? And so by telling them that, even if they are the worst students, completely changes their way of thinking.
Absolutely.
Even if they are the worst teachers.
Absolutely.
So labeling
Yes.
is because there's too many stories out there where kids are told that they're stupid or they're told that they're not going to amount to anything or they have a learning disability. We were just talking about Jim Quick on the way here. He's testament of that. Now he has a whole learning program and he was told that, you know, he was called the boy with the broken brain in school. Okay. Les Brown, one of the greatest speakers out there, was called DT, the dumb twin, growing up. And it wasn't until a teacher, he was in the wrong classroom, it wasn't until a teacher said to him, I need you to do this math problem. He's like, no, I can't. I'm not supposed to be in this class. You need to do this. You can do. Like, it wasn't until that one person believed in it and showed him that he could do it. It's all it takes. Is one person to show somebody they could do it. So, I mean, and there's story upon story upon story of young kids who were told that they wouldn't amount to anything and are super successful in whatever it is that they chose to do today.
Absolutely.
And so labeling them is not going to help. And I have to tell parents all the time, do not have these conversations in front of your kids. Do not. You know, you need to be pushing them, telling them they can do more, they can be more, they can be better, but reasonably.
And I've even heard some families, they'll go to the extent of, like, let's say their last name is Rodriguez, and they're like, well, you're Rodriguez, and Rodriguez's, we do this. And so it's like they set a standard for the family. It's like, Rodriguez's don't quit. You know, we're tough, we figure it out, you know, and so it's like they have a family like motto. And then so it helps to build that ideal up in their head, and even having those positive affirmations. If you notice that a kid has like low self-esteem, like, speak positive affirmations over them, have them repeat it over themselves, because what comes out of your mouth goes into your ears and it goes into your heart. And what goes into your heart is what you really end up believing. So even initially, if they don't believe it, you know, if they keep saying it enough, then they will actually get to the point where they believe it. And one of the days that blessed my heart, I was working in an inner city school, and I had some tough kids. They had some rough things going on. It was really, you know, it was an impoverished school. And one of my kids, he was considered to be by the test scores or whatever, a low performing student. And at the end of but I never mentioned that to him or anything like that. And at the end of the year, he looked at me and he said, Miss Andrews, I think I'm smart. And I was like, my heart, you know, I was like, oh, you know, because I never said anything to him. I just expected him to try to do his best. And that's the thing, is like knowing whether it's a kid, whether it's a teenager, whether it's an employee, knowing if people are trying to do their best, encouraging them to try to do their best. So I'm going to go back into those core personalities because I want to touch on a couple of things with them. So when you have your analytical person, that person is going to be the most satisfied when they're solving problems. Okay. Part of the problem that they can get into is that they can get too deep into the details and not want to let go of a problem that they're trying to solve. And so you have to sometimes set parameters to let them know, okay, like, we need to keep moving forward on if they're like stuck in trying to solve this one problem that may take a lot longer. It depends on what you need, but just know that with the detail-oriented person, they're going to be very good at being able to see what needs to be done and creating systems and organizing things. However, they can get down so stuck into the details that they become very critical, or that they can become like too focused on this one detail, and it's like, okay, but we need to keep moving forward. Okay. So when it comes to your creative people, they're going to need to have space to think and to create. However, they are going to need to know like when boundaries need to be put in place. And you will have to explain to them why, so they don't think you're just making up a dumb rule, because they're going to be like, this is a dumb thing, I'm not going to do it, you know. And then with your relationship oriented person, they need to be around people. That is not the person that needs to be working from home by themselves, not interacting with anybody. They're going to be super miserable. But then they also need to have that boundary of, okay, I love that you're socializing and you're getting along with your coworkers. Okay, but make sure you're doing it at your lunch break and not during the time you're supposed to be working. So each personality has its good parts and its bad parts. And the thing is that these are the things that are going to be found in us from the time we were a child. These are things that cannot change. And so knowing that, then it's like you're not trying to fight an uphill battle being in a position or in a job or doing something that's completely opposite of who you are as a person, because you're going to be miserable and you're going to make other people miserable.
Right. Yes, that's so true. That is so true. I just think that when we think about that, I mean, and even in young people, helping them discover what is their personality trait, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and how can they lead and be leaders and not followers, because I think that is the biggest issue today, is that, and I tell them all the time, like, you were not meant to just fit into a box. Yeah. You were not meant to just follow along. You were not here for a cattle call. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And, you know, but it's hard because you have to make them actually believe in themselves and not care what other people think. And that is just something that you kind of, I just try and beat into them more or less, because there's so many that are just self-conscious. Yes. Or that think that people think that they're weird or different. And helping them be like, no. Yeah. You are who you are. Yeah. And anybody that doesn't appreciate that or doesn't recognize that for you being you, doesn't deserve to be near you.
Yeah. Right? And it's interesting too, because I heard somebody talk about this the other day. They were talking about how there are sometimes when people will get married and the woman, sometimes she will support the man in whatever his endeavor is, and she'll put her endeavors and her desires on the back burner to help support her husband. And then the husband will pass away, and then all of a sudden you'll see like the real woman come out, because she's like freedom, you know, she's like, now I can be myself. Now I can be the, what do you call the designers that do the, like, interior designer. Now I can start interior designing and decorating different spaces and places. And so again, these things, so I love that we can talk about God here. These are actually, if you look at all four of these are attributes of God. He's creative. Yeah, right? Of course. He's creative. He's organized. He's detailed. He's very detail oriented. You know, they keep looking at these molecules and the atoms, and they keep finding more and more and more and more stuff, right? He also solves problems, right? And he loves people, you know. He loves us, right? And so he has given each of us an aspect of him, of his personality. And actually one of the best team, I like to talk about high-performing teams, because the high-performing teams, they actually typically will have all four of those personalities. And those people, at that point, they're good at what they do. They understand themselves and they understand their coworkers, so they don't get touchy when, you know, the creative person shows up late to the meeting. The detail-oriented person is not going to get all huffed and puffed about it. They might just be a little annoyed, but they're like, you know what, they're creative, so just, you know, they don't see it as, oh, this person is disrespecting me, and you know, this is a creative person. Like, they, you know, we can work with them, not to say that we don't want to improve and get better in the places and spaces where we can, because we can, but then because we also need to take into consideration how are we affecting other people, you know. So anyway, it's just some of those things that we can take into consideration. Right. Yeah. And it's really important for people to understand and see that. You know, I think that one of the things that the politician had said before is, you know, bringing God and bringing values back and morals back into the world. And I think it's important because that's part of leadership,
And so it's funny because even right now I'm creating 2 courses. One is leadership through the Bible.
Oh, I love that.
And the other one is leading like Jesus.
I love that.
And so when we think about it, even if you're, let's just say, even if you're not Christian,
Yeah.
you can't deny that Jesus lived and that he was an incredible leader.
Yes.
If you don't believe that he was who he was. And you can't deny the parts of the Bible or the people
Yeah.
that portrayed incredible leadership qualities.
Yes.
And so how do you
Yes.
build on those and create that as a part of who you are and how you lead, I think is really, really important.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned what you mentioned because, like, after I did the interview with Tony Gaskins, what I started to think about was like, man, I want to do like the fruits of the spirits, but I want to teach on leadership, but from the perspective of the fruits of the spirit. So what does it look like for a leader to walk in patience and kindness and gentleness and meekness? Let me tell you, meekness. People think that Jesus, some people who are misinformed think that Jesus was, no. Meekness is power under control. Meekness is power under control. So a meek person knows that they are powerful, but they have enough self-control that they only tap into the parts of their power that they need at the time they need it. Just like, for an example, if somebody knows Taekwondo,
Right.
somebody can walk up to them in the street and give them an insult, say something really mean to them. They know they could throw that person on their back within 2 seconds flat.
Right.
But if they're walking in meekness, they may say, you know what, I'm just going to walk away because if I wanted to, I could hurt this person.
Right.
But I have enough self-control that it's better for me to walk away and not hurt them because
Yep.
they don't know what I'm capable of. I know
Right.
what I'm capable of, but they don't know. And even if they did know, it doesn't matter. I have enough self-control in me not to be provoked easily.
I think that's really important because so many people today just want to flex, right? I'm this, I'm that, and it's like, if you have to do that, then are you really this or that?
Exactly.
Right?
That was my thing. I was like, are you really?
Yeah.
Are you really? You're probably not.
Because anybody that's going to let other people go ahead, take the lead, take the credit, whatever it is, that just means that the person there knows enough
Yeah.
that they have the power, but it's under control
Exactly.
and will allow that to happen. I just think there needs to be more of it. But again, like we said, there's so much good, but there's so much corruption going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many lies,
Yes.
so much deceit.
Yes.
And a lot of times when you are watching the people around you do those things,
Yeah.
especially as a child, you're like, oh,
Exactly.
it must be okay if my mom's going to do it.
Exactly.
And that's where, again, even as a parent, leading by example is so important, because if you tell them no TikTok, no this, no selfies, no blah, 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 but yet you're over there doing it yourself,
Exactly.
it's kind of hard for them to understand, well, if you can do it, why can't I? Or if that's not that important, why is it that important to you? So, I mean, leadership all across the board, whether it's in the home, whether it's in school, whether it's in your daily life, whether it's in your job,
Yes.
it's everywhere.
Yes.
And are you going to be the leader?
Yes.
Or are you going to be a follower?
Are you going to be a good leader?
Right.
Are you going to be a good leader?
Are you
Because
going to be that example?
yeah, because to your point, whenever I see, like, when I hear people complain about like their job or something like that, and they'll say, "Oh, I have this boss that's being mean or being harsh with me," the first question I ask is, "How is the leadership at the very top?" I'm like, is that an organization where that's the culture of the organization? Because if the leadership at the very top is doing the same thing, That's not going to change.
Right.
But if it's that one-off supervisor that's being like that, then things can definitely change.
Right.
And you know, depending on your skill set, you may be a more mature employee than the leader. So you might even be what's used to help them to become better, because they may not know better. They may not have had formal leadership training.
Right.
And so in that, you know, it's one of those things where really we have to look at whenever we see corruption. I'm just going to be honest. Whenever you see corruption, whenever you see other things, it always starts at the top, because you can't have an organization that is ethical that is going to allow corruption to happen beyond.
Absolutely. Correct.
So anyway.
Correct. I agree 100%. Well, an hour has gone by.
Wow.
Already. And so let's just say, how can people reach you in the sense of they want, you know, somebody to come in, train their team, work with them? I can highly recommend her because I've had her come in myself, work with my team. And how can they find you and learn more about you?
Okay. So the name of the company is Simply Unique Coaching. And on all social media platforms, I am under simplyuniquecoaching.com or Simply Unique Coaching on YouTube. I actually have a YouTube, so even if you go there, you'll be able to find me and all the contact information. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those things. But everything is under Simply Unique Coaching. So that's the name of the company.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And also, I will say here, why I am here in the Dominican Republic, there are things I think I'm supposed to be here to help with. And so if you are really serious about wanting to help develop your team, I'm not a person that's going to judge you for where you're at or your team for where they're at. I really want to see people grow. So that's my heart as a teacher, as a former teacher, is I want to see things become better here. And I want everyone to have a pleasant experience here. And I do it because God has called me to do it, and I'm passionate about helping people grow.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you to our audience out there, our listeners, to What's Up Puntacana. Another week has gone by, and we will be back again next week. So long, and see you soon. Bye for now. Every Friday at 7 p.m., Puntacanahits presents What's Up Puntacana with Christy Maggio, the #1 and only English talk show in the area, with the best that the Dominican Republic and the rest of the world have to offer.
Uniformes Batiza está más cerca de ti. Tienda líder en el mercado en la fabricación y venta de todo tipo de uniformes al por mayor y al detalle.